No intro. Hello and welcome to today's edition of Route 664, The Road to Human Kindness. I'm your host, Les Winston, and I'm with you every Thursday here at the community newspapers at 11 o'clock, our usual time. And we talk about endowing America. That's what the pitch is all about, endowing America. We need to do that using socialsecharity, and this is a great solution to almost all of the problems that we face in this country today. We can reduce our national debt. We can increase the amount of income that we get to live on individually. We reduce our taxes. We straighten out things that need to be straightened out in our communities by using charitable dollars that you're paying in the form of taxes that you can now reconstruct and change over to the better side of the community's use in the form of charitable dollars. Those charitable dollars are the endowments that you can leave behind when you use socialsecharity devices. Go to the website, socialsecharity.org, and look at our ideas, what our hypothesis is. We believe that we can change the country from 30 trillion in debt to 30 trillion in endowed in NGOs, meaning that is money that is held to support non-governmental organizations. We don't believe that the government, the federal government or state governments really should be supporting non-governmental organizations. We should be supported by the community and by endowment. You can do that through socialsecharity. That's what the program is all about. We're trying to get you to use Section 664 of the tax code, the same way you use Section 401k or use Section 529. You need to get the ability to extend the assets that you have by reducing the taxes that you pay. You can get more value out of the same dollar. We call that an exchange. It's a funny money exchange. It's actually getting something for nothing. Most of us don't really realize we're philanthropists, but we're taxpayers. So we're involuntary philanthropists. We're not in control of that philanthropy. We'd like you to become a controlled philanthropist. And by doing that, you increase your income, you reduce your taxes, and at the end of the day, you do something great for the community. One of the great things in our community is our guest that we interviewed earlier, and he is a real piece of memorabilia in Miami. My good friend, Seth Bramson. This is from earlier today. So from time to time on Route 664, the Road to Human Kindness, we go back in history and we like to reminisce a little bit. And one of the most famous people to reminisce with here in Miami is my next guest, Seth Bramson. Seth joins us here in the studio, and I'm holding up Seth's latest book, which is The Lost Restaurants of Miami. And this is just one of the last, I think, of about 35 that you've written, Seth?
Actually written 36, 33 have been published.
Okay.
And none self-published, all by legitimate brick and mortar publishers.
Good. So they're not vanity books. They're books that actually somebody wants to see out in the public.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. And I'm working on 3 more right now.
So you do histories of cities, you do histories of, famous people in the state of Florida. I know you've done a couple.
Yes, 2 biographies. One of them is the only biography ever written about a Florida judge or Supreme Court justice. That, of course, is the late, great Florida Supreme Court Chief Justice Gerald Cogan. Okay. The other is a true American hero. You know, it annoys me to hear this nonsense. People are talking about baseball players or musicians. They're not heroes. They're not legends. This man was a true hero. World War II, Battle of the Bulge, German POW, Stalag 4B survivor, wow. Winner of the Bronze Star for bravery. And when the Brigadier General presented him he said, "Barney, this should have been a Silver Star." Combat Infantry Medal, captured by the Germans at the Battle of the Bulge, liberated by the Russians on May 1st, 1945.
Did you interviewed him and you got all this information directly from him, right?
Absolutely. And Barney Marison, the title of the book is From Brooklyn to the Battle of the Bulge and on to building an international business. And Barney is still with us, 98 and a half years old.
That's great.
And if all goes well and he's up to it, and he's done this for a number of years, he will be coming and speaking to my classes, my history classes at Barry University, either later this week or next week.
That's fascinating to me also, the fact that you're still teaching. And I mean, I think you found your genius. You like what you're doing. Can you do this 24 hours a day?
I only when my bride insists that I go to sleep, I don't. But other than that,
you love it. I can tell you do.
Yeah, it's a long
So tell us a
time.
little bit about the latest book, The Lost Restaurants of Miami. I see you've got a lot of mementos and
Right.
things from, I recognize some of them. Why don't you show some of those to the people? I think they need to get an appreciation of exactly how big a collection you actually have of memorabilia.
Well, I think then it should be quickly noted that, remember, I am America's senior collector of Florida East Coast Railway, Florida transportation memorabilia, Miami memorabilia, and Floridiana. This past May, having started my 63rd year of collecting all this junk, JUNQUE.
Classy junk, yeah.
Yes, our collections of Florida East Coast Railway and Florida transportation memorabilia, Les, are the largest in the world. They are larger than the State Museum's collection of like items, of course, not their entire collection, and larger than the Flagler Museum's.
So where can folks see that? Where?
Well,
how do you get to see all this?
They call to make an appointment, because remember, the Bramson Archive is a private museum.
Okay.
It's
Where's it located?
in Miami Shores.
Okay.
But the collection of Miami memorabilia in Floridiana is the largest in private hands, private as opposed to museums.
Right.
But in a number of areas, it is the largest, including Miami and Miami Beach hotel and restaurant memorabilia. There's nothing like it. And we start off first by letting our viewers know that we had two very, very early operations of the Peacock Inn, of course, where Peacock Park is now,
Right.
and Commodore Monroe's The Barnacle.
Mhm.
And people could actually go there when they were open and have something to eat.
When are we talking about? What time frame?
Pre-1900.
Wow.
But the first public piece was probably W.N. Wood's Tavern.
Hmm.
And W.N. Woods, and we have in the Bramson Archive the oldest piece of Miami hotel or restaurant china or glassware known to exist. Mr. Woods had a tavern just north of what was then 8th Street, today's Northeast, I think 4th Street.
Hmm.
Because remember that Julia Tuttle, the numbering of the streets was different then.
Right.
12th Street became Flagler Street.
Right.
So
right.
what is today Northeast 12th was 1st Street. There were no Northeast, Northwest. At any rate, Woods had a tavern just outside of Julia Tuttle's holdings.
Okay.
And that was North Miami at the time. And so this marvelous piece, I don't know if our viewers, well, they can see how tiny it is.
Yeah.
On one side, it has his name, W.N. Woods. The other side, it says N. Miami, 1899.
Wow.
So at this point, this piece is 122 years old.
That's phenomenal.
And
So that's the oldest piece.
that is the oldest
What's
piece.
the newest piece?
Well, the newest piece would not be in the book. That, of course, would be any current restaurant piece.
Right.
But to really understand and make it happy, we do have to start off by noting that Joe's Stone Crab and the Forge are not in the book, because the Forge was in existence when the book was being written.
Okay.
But we do want to know.
Joe Stone Crab's obviously still in
Right,
existence.
we do
right?
want
so
to
these
know-
are only restaurants that
Joe's
are
menu,
gone,
the Joe's menu.
and they've been gone for a
Right.
while.
The old one. Remember that today.
Vanna. Pardon me, I'm going to be Vanna White.
Okay.
Take it up to the camera.
Oh,
Pardon me.
wonderful.
Pardon me.
Okay, then. Okay, look how excited I got
I
just
know.
seeing this beautiful woman. What we want to recognize is that it did not become Joe's Stone Crab
Right.
until Jesse Weiss, Joe's son, was on his third wife.
Okay.
He left town to go on a vacation. She ran the restaurant. And in 1958, he came back. The name had been changed to Joe's Stone Crab. All right. Well, all that.
I do want to say that that of all the restaurants that you're going to talk about, this is the one restaurant that everybody in the world will know about. So when this is digital on radio, they'll recognize Joe's Stone Crab.
Well,
So the
you know,
history is really important.
It's at the same location, and we
Yeah.
won't go into the whole history except to tell you that we have this particular menu. Are we able to see it, our viewers? Yes.
Joe's, the first established eating place on Miami Beach.
Right. But
at
when we open it,
227 Biscayne
right.
Street.
But when we open it, they didn't even have key lime pie as a dessert.
Really?
And stone crabs are on the menu. Fish and seafoods in season. Stone crabs, $2.50.
Wow.
So you have to understand the age of this.
Yeah, that's quite a while ago.
Probably from the 30s. Maybe from the early 40s. At any rate,
That's a by the way, in case anybody's wondering who the hands belong to, that's Ted Grossman. Ted is the stagehand on this particular show today, and we're gonna figure out how to pay him wage.
Good. But we also should note that Ted, his program on WLRN is the oldest running radio program, the longest running on the same station in the history of the state of Florida, coming up on 45 years on the same station.
Wow.
And the great Ted Grossman, he and I are good friends. He's a good friend of yours, and
yes,
just a wonderful
we know
guy.
each other for many years.
But we want to mention that, even though there's one left, it is included in the book because it's not part of the original Royal Castle.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I remember that.
This is the advertising fan. But we want to start off really our presentation by noting a couple of wonderful pieces of Royal Castle china and the Royal Castle song. Now I'm going to sing the song seated because, as you know, when I do it standing up, it's got
a lot of
audience and a lot of movements.
Yeah.
But we do want to start off with Royal da 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 Castle da 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 Royal Castle. We've got the very best. I'm hungry. Let's eat.
All right.
Let's go to Royal Castle. And what a wonderful memory that is.
Yeah, that is.
But you see, the memories go back really very early. For example, one of the things that I brought is, in the great days, most of the golf clubs had at the end of the ninth hole, the golfers would take a break.
Right.
And they had a snack bar, or they actually had a little restaurant.
Mhm.
And we had one of those right here in Coral Gables. And this is the china when we turn it over. And I know it's hard to see, but again, maybe Wanda will bring it in front of the camera. It says Warwick China, 19th hole, Miami Biltmore.
All right.
And this was the china just for the 19th hole.
The 19th hole of the golf course.
On the golf course. So you can imagine. Now,
that's actually that hotel is.
Oh, the Biltmore still there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And there was no ghost on the 13th floor. And
listen, Seth, I was a blood drawer when I was in college. I lived at the Veterans Hospital when it was the Veterans Hospital.
Sure.
And I used to see that ghost, so don't tell me there's no ghost.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, you. I think Les. I'm sorry, but
you're not supposed to see ghosts, right?
Yes, that was my dad. He just didn't look so good most days. Anyway, one of the fun things that we remind people about, we've got nothing. The whole presentation is nothing but fun things. But one of the most of them on Miami Beach at Dade Boulevard and West Avenue was a wonderful nightclub restaurant called Mother Kelly's. Mother Kelly was a male. He was a man, and he was a character.
Fits today.
My dad actually did his signs. My dad was in the sign business, and if Mother Kelly liked you and you were a regular, he would present you with his doll. I don't know. It's what do you? It's not ceramic paper mache. I don't know what it is, but it's a wonderful piece. And on the back it says something about your host, me. But you can see it says Mother Kelly's, Miami Beach, FL. He's holding the shaker, and you say, "Gee, that's nice." But
what is it?
What is it? And when we turn it around, we see that there's a little slot in the tush because this was a bank, and you put your coins right in Mother Kelly's tushy.
I got news for you. Some of the banks went through that.
Yes,
for a while. Yeah.
They absolutely did.
I got to stop you for a second because
yes.
I want to personalize this a little bit more. The memorabilia is amazing, but how did you get the memorabilia?
Well, thank you for asking. I am America's senior collector. There's nobody alive or dead who has ever done this with this kind of fanaticism, interest, caring, love, whatever term you want to use, and less appreciation from certain elements in Miami history. But I will say this to you. This past May started my 63rd year. When I walked, and I always loved trains, when I walked into the Florida East Coast Railway City ticket office in the Ingraham building in downtown Miami and asked for timetables. But it wasn't just that. Everything I saw, I said, this needs to be preserved.
Mhm.
And I began saving the timetables, the menus, the booklets, the brochures, our collection of Greater Miami, that's Miami, Miami Beach, Homestead, Hialeah,
Right.
hotel and restaurant memorabilia is the largest in public or private hands in the country.
Yeah.
Our Florida postcard collection is the largest, thousands upon thousands upon thousands, many of them, of course, the hotels and restaurants. So
You've been in some very interesting jobs.
yes, sir.
I know that you were connected to the Playboy Club.
Yes, sir.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I was in the restaurant business here for many years with a great man who he and his dad had the Tasty Shop right here on Carl Way in Coral Gables.
Mhm.
And Lloyd Apple was a character, but he was the greatest there was when it came to elegance in food and beverage. And Lloyd and I hit it off. I became his manager at his first restaurant, Lloyd's at the Maison Grande. We then had Bernard's in the Carriage House. Long story short,
Bernard's.
I went to
that was
Piccadilly Hearth.
very fancy restaurant.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
became manager at Piccadilly Hearth.
Yeah, remember that.
And it was
well,
at
too.
Piccadilly that some people came down, and long story short, I was asked to become the general manager of the famous New York Gaslight Club. And there were 4 Gaslight clubs, New York, Washington, D.C., and 2 in Chicago, 1 at O'Hare and 1 downtown.
Tell me a little bit about the year of this. You're talking about what year here?
I went up in 76, and then I came back in 78. And why did I come back? Because Lloyd said to me, you must come back now that you married this beautiful woman you married, who November 27th will be 45 years.
Wow. Congratulations.
And
And Myrna's here in the studio.
Right. And thank you.
I'll give you, because you must be housing a lot of this memorabilia.
Poor Myrna. I know I got to get it out of the house.
Yeah.
But I want you to know that
Dusting is a
I-
heck of a chore.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But I chased this woman for 3 years until she caught me.
All right, good.
And I am her third and last husband. She's my first and only wife. I would never go through this again.
All right.
But it's 45 years of being in love with the same woman.
That's a good thing.
I say it publicly.
That's a
But the
good thing.
point is that I get
This is after we're talking about the Playboy Club.
no,
so I
no,
just
no,
want to
no.
get. I
Well,
want to
yeah.
go back
Well,
to the.
now remember though, I go up to New York, and I'm waiting for the interview. I'd been asked to come up,
Right.
and I'm sitting in the Theodore Bar in New York, 124 East 56th Street.
Uh-huh.
There's a sign over the bar, and the sign says, "Work is the curse of the drinking classes." And I said, I like this. Well, I had to go to the restroom, so I go around to the restroom, and there's a big, huge cast iron bathtub, and it's got pipes attached, and that's the urinal. But what you have to understand is that this big, huge cast iron bathtub is mounded with ice, mounded with ice.
Yeah.
And I look up at the sign that's over the bathtub, and the sign says, "These ice cubes are hardly ever used in our drinks." And I said, I have to get this job.
That's a good thing.
And I became general. Now, you have to understand that Playboy came out of Gaslight.
Right.
Hugh Hefner and Arnie Morton, and I became very cordial with Arnie. Arnie offered me the job as GM of his first restaurant, his first Arnie's.
Yeah.
They used to go to the Gaslight Club in Chicago every day for lunch.
Right.
One day, this story came right from Arnie, so I know it to be factual.
Okay.
Arnie said to Hef one day, we can do this. Hef said, we can do what? We can have a club just like this. Arnie said, we can't have a club we can't have a Gaslight. Of course not. We're going to call it the Playboy Club. And it was Arnie who came up with the idea of the ears and the tail.
Great idea.
Okay. But remember, the Gaslight girls were all singers, dancers, entertainers. The bunnies weren't. Okay.
Yeah.
Long
Huh.
story short, I came back down here. Lloyd brings me down, and for 5 years we do the catering at the famous Epicure Market.
Right.
And it was wonderful, but it was doing catering is murder. And he just kind of wore out. It was right at that time that I was asked to meet with the Playboy people. They
Right.
knew I had Gaslight experience,
Right.
and I become general manager of Playboy Club Miami.
That's a great job.
And I bring the club back to life.
Right.
A lot of changes needed to be made. Right now, for our viewers, and Les, I think you and Ted knew this. I don't know if Wanda knew this, but I am today the only living former Playboy Club Miami general manager. And I want you to know
Okay.
that no matter how stunningly beautiful the Gaslight Girls and the Playboy Bunnies were, and many of them were,
Yes.
nothing could turn my head from the woman I'm looking at across the table. Okay.
Glad to hear that. Yeah.
And no,
Yeah.
she knows I'm very serious.
Listen, I
about
can
that.
tell. I mean, there's
Well-
a long-standing agreement between you.
Yes, sir. I want you to know, though, that at Gaslight, I revived what we used to call the road shows. We took the Gaslight Girls out on road shows. Of course, the people paid to have them there.
Right.
And remember, the Gaslight Girls were all entertainers, not strippers or anything. They were entertained. Glenn Verdon, Damn Yankees, was a Gaslight Girl.
Mm-hmm.
Many other famous names on Broadway.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I got down to Miami, the club was in terrible shape. It had been neglected on 77th and Biscayne.
Right.
And
Remember well.
I immediately started doing things.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I did was moving it over here to the airport, and we moved it over to Lejeune Road, tripled the business. And that's when I started again doing the Playboy road shows.
Okay.
And so when I left Playboy,
Right.
I decided, since I had put together the road shows, I would help myself to what I had put together.
All right.
And so this
That's a
banner
great.
went out with us on the road shows, the famous Miami Playboy Club Bunnies.
Wait a minute.
And
wait
we're
a
gonna-
So-
we're gonna wait
So
a
is
minute.
so you know what? I always thought that Hef was gaslighting all the men by putting all those women in the magazine in the first place. You
Well,
know,
let me tell you,
go to gaslighting.
you gotta give them credit. I mean,
I give him a lot of credit. I think
it-
that guy
it
did a
was-
heck of a job.
It was really
He's had
very
a hell of a
interesting.
life. Yeah.
But at any rate, what we had and what we have saved, for example, many of your wonderful viewers are going to remember this place.
Lums,
But
right?
I want to explain that this did not come from the real Lums. And let me tell you what the real Lums was. Not Henry and Charles Lum. They were the original buyers of the property on Miami Beach in 1870. The Lums, Mr. and Mrs. Lum, who were not related, opened up eventually a small chain of 6.
They weren't related. Lum. They both had the last
They
name
both have
Lum.
last name Lum. Well,
and
that's
they
like
weren't-
there are
they
many Schwartzes.
You're kidding. There are a
no,
lot of
that are
Lums?
not. Well, I'm not saying a lot, but they weren't related.
That's interesting.
Okay.
Okay.
There are a number of Winstons that are not related, right?
Yeah, there are.
Okay. So we got to. I see we're getting a signal. We're gonna
That's all
wrap
right.
it
No
up.
problem. We got
All right.
another 5 minutes.
What I just want to very quickly tell you, though, because we got so much to show, which we won't today, maybe another
No,
time.
this is what I want to say. I had the pleasure of having you at the Aventura Sunny Isles Beach Chamber of Commerce recent luncheon, and the people loved your presentation.
Thank you.
And it gives you a much greater opportunity to be able to show the memorabilia, and the
Right,
memorabilia is fascinating.
Thank you.
And it is very entertaining, and I certainly encourage people to find you at Barry
Right.
if you're
Right.
you're
Well,
teaching there. And
it's always better to look me up at sbramson@bellsouth.net.
okay,
Yeah.
S Bramson,
At
www.
No.
No?
Email sbramson@bellsouth.net, not a
Okay.
website.
Okay,
They can email, not via Messenger, just strictly.
what should
using,
they email you to do?
if they would like to come to the Bramson Archive.
Okay.
It's not a public museum. That's why they got to make arrangements.
Okay,
Or to have me give a talk. Remember, Les, that I give 15 different talks on South Florida local and Florida transportation history, 6 of which are my what I call my adult show and tell talks.
okay,
Included among those is the history of discrimination in Greater Miami,
Okay.
to which I bring the memorabilia
right,
from the days of segregation and of restricted clientele when Jews weren't allowed at certain hotels or restaurants,
right,
hotels or clubs.
right.
So,
And there was always separation time frames and so
sure.
on. Yeah.
So that's where I bring.
But
the
that's
material.
history. That's
Right.
That's that is legitimate history in the state of Florida, and so we learn from our
Absolutely.
history. So I think
Absolutely.
you're letting people see and touch history, which I think is phenomenal. How did you get so involved with just the last item that I want to cover? How did you get so involved with the East Coast Railroad?
Well, from day number one, when we came down here, we moved down in 1946. And I had said it was the hottest summer in history in New York. So let me finish this because I think you're
Sure.
going to love it.
Go ahead.
I said to my father, I said, Dad, it's murder here. Why don't we move to Miami Beach? The heat, it will have heat, but at least we'll be near the ocean. He said, well, pack up your mother, pack up the car, and we'll go. I packed up my mother. I packed up the car. He picked me up. He put me in the driver's seat. He said, let's go. I said, there's only one problem. My arms don't reach the steering wheel and my legs don't reach the pedals. It's okay. I'll drive. When you came down here in those days, there were no 4-lane roads. It was all 2-lane roads.
Right.
There were no motels along the way. There were tourist courts and cabins, and they all had signs out that said they all said air cooled. And air cooled meant that you opened the windows or you turned on the fan.
It was it.
Right?
Right.
And that was it.
Before air conditioning.
So, right.
Changed my mind a
We
lot.
came down from moment number one. I loved the trains, loved it. And the following year, Dad started taking me to the Mayflower Coffee Shop, which many of our wonderful viewers will recognize the name, Southeast 1st Street and Biscayne Boulevard.
Right.
And we'd go there first. Then we'd go to the Pony Track at Biscayne Boulevard and 15th Street. And it broke my heart when Jordan Marsh was built.
Yep.
But then was the high point of the day. Every Sunday for the next 3 years, Dad would take me to Buena Vista Yard, which we know today as Midtown, FEC Yards in Miami. And I would climb all over the steam
You were a little
locomotives.
kid.
3 years, 3
Yeah.
to 6 years old.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Nobody
That must
e-
have been gigantic to you.
It was fabulous.
Yeah.
Nobody ever came and said, you can't be here. What are you doing here?
Yeah, times
Well,
were different.
Right.
There's no
Long
question.
story short, I started photographing the FEC when I was a little kid. They got to know me. When we tore down the Miami station, when the strike began in '63, I saved everything, including the big wooden colored sign from the colored waiting room, which I use in my talks. And today, as our former president of the railroad used to say, because he used to like to come down as far as New Smyrna from our offices in Jacksonville
Right.
to introduce me, he would hold up one finger, not this finger, this finger. He would hold up one finger and he would say to the audience, I want you all to know that Seth is number one. Everybody's looking at him. What the hell? What does that mean? Then he would say, Seth is number one in a field of one, because I'm the only person in the country who bears the official title of company historian with an American railroad. And my book, Speedway to Sunshine, the story of the Florida East Coast Railway, is our company's
The books are
official
still
history.
available
The
today.
books-
The
the
books
books
are
are-
available. And I encourage everybody, whatever history you want to learn about, whether it's a city that you're interested in. We have history of a city of Aventura and Sunny Isles Beach. I'm in the history of the city of Aventura.
Right.
Which is
Absolutely.
interesting. I paid for
Absolutely.
that. So anyway, I want to thank you very much, Seth, for being with us. And thank you very much for bringing your stagehand with you, Ted. Thanks a lot. And the memorabilia is amazing. And folks should reach out to you, Seth, at sbramson
At
at
bellsouth.net.
bellsouth.net
Yes, sir.
and make an appointment to go out and see what
Absolutely.
you've collected there.
Yeah. Or I'll come and speak to their groups, not little kids though. Has to be high school age and older because the little kids just don't focus.
No problem. Thank you for being with us today on the road to human kindness.
Pleasure.
Route 664.
Thank
Okay. So that was I like that. I hadn't seen it before. It was like very entertaining. So anyway, glad you could join us today on Route 664, the road to human kindness. And remember to be philanthropic and to be kind to others. Human kindness is what it's all about. And the world will be a better place. 664 not war. That's what we believe in. If we can change the world to being charitably supported rather than governments getting involved, I think it'll be a lot better for everybody. Not that we don't need government. I'm not an anarchist. I'm just a common sense person. And this is a way to change things with a common sense approach. And it was given to us by Congress. So it must be good. All right. Nice talking with you. Take care. See you next week. Oh, yeah. Visit us on Facebook. Thanks, Wanda. See you guys. Thank you, studio. Thank you, community newspapers. Bye.